And everyone is staring at the headlines. They are looking at interest rates, at election cycles, and at the latest social media outrage. If you are looking there, you are already behind the curve. You are missing the tectonic shift happening in the basement of the Pentagon. On the 7th of April, the United States Department of Defense released a budget proposal that looked, to the untrained eye, like a mountain of dry paperwork. It was a list of requests for planes, for ships, for tanks, and for those dark budgets that nobody talks about in polite company. But if you know how to read the matrix, you saw something else. You saw a fingerprint of a total systemic overhaul. Hidden deep within those columns of numbers was a figure that should have sent a shockwave through every capital, from Moscow to Beijing. $54.6 billion. Let that number hang in the air for a second. $54.6 billion for a program most people cannot even name. This is not just a line item in a ledger. This is a declaration of a new era of warfare. To put that into perspective, we are talking about a sum of money that rivals the annual revenue of Intel or American Airlines. It is more than the entire gross domestic product of countries like Bahrain, Latvia, or Cambodia. This single program is now eating a larger slice of the pie than the entire United States Space Force. It is nearly equal to the budget of the United States Marine Corps. When the Pentagon moves $54.6 billion into a silent corner, it is not an accident. It is a pivot. The name on the folder is the Defense Autonomous Warfare Group. They call it DAG. It used to be called DAG.UG, but the branding changed as the stakes got higher. For the last year, this group has existed in the shadows, a ghost in the machine of the defense bureaucracy. It started with a few $100 million, a rounding error in the grand scheme of Washington spending. Now it is being hit with a 24,000% increase in funding. You do not increase a budget by 24,000% unless you are building a new world order. This is the billion-dollar ghost. It is the response to a reality that the old generals in the high-ceilinged rooms are finally being forced to accept. The old way of war is dead. It died in the mud of eastern Ukraine and in the waters of the Black Sea. It died when a $20,000 drone made of plastic and duct tape turned a $10 million main battle tank into a burning coffin. The exchange ratio has flipped. The math of the 20th century no longer works. The Pentagon spent decades building the most expensive, most sophisticated, and most fragile toys in human history. They built the F-35, they built the Gerald R. Ford class carriers. These are marvels of engineering, but they are also targets, they are high-value targets that require thousands of people and billions of dollars to maintain. And now they are being threatened by trash. They are being threatened by mass-produced autonomous systems that do not care about air superiority or traditional doctrines. The DAG program is the evolution of something called Replicator. Replicator was the Biden administration's first real attempt to play the game of quantity as quality. It was born in 2023, inspired by the carnage in Ukraine. The goal was simple: find cheap drones from startups, buy them by the thousands, and throw them at the problem. But the system resisted. The industrial military complex is a slow-moving beast that prefers 10-year contracts and gold-plated hardware. Replicator hit walls. It hit political walls in Congress and technical walls in the field. The early prototypes failed. They couldn't handle electronic warfare. They were too fragile for the reality of a high-intensity battlefield. Some analysts thought the program would die when the administration changed. They thought the rogue analyst types would be silenced by the return of the big-ticket traditionalists. They were wrong. Under the current leadership, Replicator didn't die. It mutated. It became DAG. It became leaner, meaner, and much, much better funded. And the strategy shifted from let's try this too. We must do this. Now, the focus moved away from the small hobbyist drones you see on the news. The new focus is on large-scale, long-range, autonomous systems. We are talking about drones that can fly thousands of miles, navigate without GPS, and make decisions without a human in the loop. This is about the power of three: speed, scale, and lethality. The Pentagon is no longer interested in buying 10 perfect planes. They want to buy 10,000 good enough drones. They are looking at the chessboard of the Pacific and realizing that the old pieces are too slow and they need a hellscape. If a conflict breaks out over Taiwan or the South China Sea, the United States cannot wait weeks to move a carrier strike group into position. That is the actual term used by Admiral Samuel Paparo, a hellscape. This is the plan to flood the Taiwan Strait with thousands of autonomous submarines, surface ships, and aerial drones the moment a leaf falls. The goal is to turn the water and the air into a maelstrom of sensors and explosives. You don't need to win a traditional naval battle if the enemy cannot move a single ship without it being swarmed by 500 suicide drones. It is a strategy of denial through mass. But look at the numbers again. Look at the F-22 Raptor. It is the greatest air superiority fighter ever built. We have 187 of them. That sounds like a lot. Until you look at the readiness rates, only about 125 are combat ready at any given time. By the end of 2024, the readiness rate was hovering around 40%. That means on a bad day, only 50 Raptors are ready to fly. If you have to defend the continental United States and keep a presence in Europe, how many are left for the Pacific? Maybe 30 planes to face the entire weight of the People's Liberation Army Air Force. It is a losing hand. It is a mathematical dead end. The F-22 is a masterpiece, but it is a lonely masterpiece. It cannot be in two places at once, and it cannot be replaced. The production line is closed. The tools are gone. This is why $54.6 billion is flowing into DAG. The United States is building a shadow force. They are building a military that doesn't need a decade to train a pilot or $1 billion to build a hull. They are moving toward a model of attrition warfare where the loss of 1,000 units is just a Tuesday. It is a cold, pragmatic shift. It is the end of the era of the unbeatable platform and the beginning of the era of the expendable swarm. The geopolitical surgeon knows that money is the ultimate indicator of intent. You do not put $54.6 billion into a program unless you are preparing for a total transformation of the force. This is the seed money for a potential sixth branch of the military, a United States drone force. It might not have a fancy name yet, but the structure is already there. It has the budget of a major service, and it has the strategic priority of a nuclear program. We are seeing the death of the old guard thinking. For years, the Pentagon was obsessed with exquisite technology. They wanted the stealthiest, the fastest, the most connected. But Ukraine showed us that exquisite is a liability when the enemy has enough. When you spend $2 million on an interceptor missile to shoot down a $20,000 drone, you are bleeding white. You are losing the war of economics before the first shot is even fired. The DAG program is about fixing that ratio. It is about building systems that cost $50,000 but can destroy targets worth $50 million. It is about asymmetric leverage. The United States is finally learning the lesson that Iran and Turkey have been teaching the world for the last decade. You don't need $1 billion jet to change the course of a war. You just need a lot of cheap, smart things that can work together. The timeline is, they are talking about drone dominance. Within 18 months, they want 200,000 autonomous systems in the field by January of 2028. That is a blistering pace for a bureaucracy that usually takes 10 years to pick a new camouflage pattern. It suggests the level of urgency that borders on panic. Or perhaps it is not panic, but a calculated realization that the window of superiority is closing. The Crucible exercise in June is the next big test. They are bringing in startups and tech giants to prove they can deploy these systems in 90 days. 90 days. In Pentagon time, that is a heartbeat. They are trying to bypass the traditional acquisition cycle, which is a trap of its own making. They are looking for the rogue analysts of the tech world to build the software that will drive the swarm. Because the hardware is the easy part. Anyone can build a plastic wing and a motor. The secret sauce is the autonomy. It is the ability for 1,000 drones to talk to each other, to identify targets, and to coordinate an attack without a human pulling the strings. This is the matron of the modern battlefield. It is a world where the speed of relevance is measured in milliseconds, not minutes. If you have to wait for a colonel to approve a strike, you are already dead. The unsaid truth here is that we are witnessing the automation of killing on a scale that was once the stuff of science fiction. $54.6 billion is the price tag for the end of human-centric warfare. We are moving toward a reality where the brave pilot is replaced by a server rack in Nevada or a chip in a disposable nose cone. It is a cleaner way to fight, perhaps, but it is also a more terrifying one. It lowers the barrier to entry for conflict. When war is expensive and costs lives, leaders are hesitant. When war is a matter of industrial output and autonomous swarms, the escalation ladder becomes a lot easier to climb. If you lose 10,000 drones in a day, you haven't lost a single soldier. You've just lost a day's worth of production. It turns war into a game of exchange ratios and supply chain resilience. It becomes an accounting exercise with lethal consequences. The focus on the Pacific is the hook that ties this all together. The geography of the first island chain is a nightmare for traditional logistics. Trying to keep a carrier supplied in the middle of a missile-dense environment is a suicide mission. But thousands of small autonomous underwater vehicles, thousands of long-range aerial drones launched from shipping, containers, that is a different story. That is a problem that cannot be solved with a few anti-ship missiles. This is the blueprint for the next decade. The United States is not giving up its carriers or its stealth jets, not yet. But it is building a second military alongside the first one. A military that is designed to be broken, to be lost, and to be replaced. So $54.6 billion is just the beginning. It is the first payment on a future where the bancor is crowded with millions of silent, thinking machines. The sarcasm of history is that the country that invented the high-tech, high-cost way of war is now being forced to adopt the low-tech philosophy of its rivals. The Pentagon is essentially trying to out Iran and out China. They are taking the lessons of the street-level drone wars and scaling them with the power of the world's largest economy. It is a kuva to the traditional defense contractors who have lived off the fat of the land for 40 years, but can they do it? The bleeding of the industrial base is real. The United States doesn't make things the way it used to. It doesn't have the mass of factories that China has. This is the point of failure in the plan. You can have $54.6 billion, but if you don't have the chips, the batteries, and the carbon fiber, you just have a very expensive pile of paper. The DAG program is as much about rebuilding the American factory as it is about building the American drone. They are trying to de-risk the supply chain, and they are trying to find ways to build these systems without a single part from an adversary. It is a hostile takeover of the global supply chain. They are moving towards sovereign manufacturing, where the entire life cycle of a weapon happens within a trusted network. It is a tall order. It is a task that Napoleon or Sun Tzu would have recognized as the ultimate challenge. the marriage of logistics and strategy, the drip feed of information from the Pentagon suggests that they are already seeing results. They are seeing Bailey drone units destroying tank formations in simulations. They are seeing autonomous boats navigating thousands of miles of open ocean. The 16 shadows under the sea are no longer just a metaphor. They are prototypes. They are waiting for the signal to become a permanent part of the landscape. We are at a paradigm shift. The media will keep talking about the old world because the old world is easy to understand. They will talk about the number of hulls and the number of wings, but the rogue analyst knows that the real power is now measured in lines of code and cost per kill. The $54.6 billion is the admission price for this new game. If you aren't playing, you aren't a superpower. The subtext of the DAG budget is a warning to the rest of the world. It says that the United States has stopped being naive. It has stopped believing that its old advantages will last forever. It is a pragmatic pivot to a darker, faster, and more automated future. It is the sound of an empire rearming itself for a century that it no longer dominates by default. It is the sound of the geopolitical surgeon cutting away the rot of the old system. So when you see those boring budget documents, don't go to sleep. Look for the anomalies. Look for the 24,000% increases. Look for the names like Defense Autonomous Warfare Group, because that is where the future is being written. It is being written in the language of autonomous warfare and mass attrition. It is being written with $54.6 billion of your money. The vibe in Washington is changing. The motto is no longer peace through strength. It is deterrence through mass. The goal is to make the cost of aggression so high and the chance of success so low that the enemy never even tries. But to do that, you have to be willing to play the numbers game. You have to be willing to lose 1,000 drones to save one pilot. You have to be willing to embrace the Rathi Congress NGL war. In the end, this is about survival. It is about the realization that the world has become a materon of threats that move faster than any human general can think. The $54.6 billion is a bet. It is a bet that the United States can reinvent itself before the point of no return. It is a bet that Silicon Valley can save the Pentagon from its own NJ-tha. We are watching a ma-ar-jika where the actors don't even know the script has changed. The old generals are still rehearsing their lines about air superiority and carrier dominance, but the stagehands are already moving the scenery. They are bringing in the swarm forces and the autonomous commands. They are preparing for a play where the lead actor is an algorithm. Don't be fooled by the neutral tone of the bureaucratic announcements. There is nothing neutral about a $54.6 billion shift in resources. It is a coup d'etat to the gut of the status quo. It is the bunchet K for a military that will look nothing like the one we know today. It is the HHL lobby of 20 years of being distracted while the rest of the world caught up. The geopolitical surgeon sees the ex exeres of the old doctrine. It is lying on the table waiting for the autopsy. The DAG program is the first step in the reconstruction. It is the attempt to build a new body, one that is made of software and steel, one that can survive in the hellscape of the 21st century. It is a grim task, but a necessary one. As we move toward 2027, the drip feed will become a flood. You will see more swarm exercises. You will see more autonomous departments. You will see the petrodollar logic being replaced by computational power logic. The large chessboard is being reset. The pieces are being replaced by expendable assets. The core value here is clarity. The clarity to see that the old U.S. hegemony was built on a foundation that has eroded. The clarity to admit that we are bleeding and that we need a tourniquet. The $54.6 billion is that tourniquet. It is a desperate, expensive, and brilliant attempt to stop the shall be me blood of American power. So keep your eyes on the numbers, keep your eyes on the DAG, and keep your eyes on the Taiwan Strait, because that is where the theory will meet the reality. That is where we will find out if $54.6 billion can buy a victory or if it just buys more time. The bond for is waiting. The 16 shadows are waiting, and the history is watching. It doesn't care about our sentiments or our traditions. It only cares about results. It only cares about who has the most effective way to project will across the void. Right now, the United States is betting its future on the machine. It is betting that the autonomous can do what the human no longer can. It is a brave new world, or maybe just a very old one with new tools. The Peloponnesian Wars were won by the side that could outbuild and outlast the other. The Napoleonic Wars were won by the side that could organize mass more effectively. The drone wars will be no different. The surgeon knows that the truth is always found in the numbers. 54.6 billion. Remember that number? It is the sound of the future arriving. It is the sound of the Pentagon waking up. It is the sound of a superpower trying to stay a superpower. Whether it works or not, the Bond 4 will never be the same. The Matran has been updated. The game has truly begun. And as the rogue analyst leaves the room, he leaves you with one question. If the most powerful military in history is spending $54.6 billion to replace its humans with machines, what does that tell you about the next war? What does it tell you about the value of a life on the future battlefield? Think about that the next time you look at your wallet. The Habdonder is coming. We're all going to pay it. Some will pay in dollars and some will pay in blood. But the machines don't care. They just wait for the code. They just wait for the command. And the Pentagon is making sure they have plenty of company. 54.6 billion companies, to be exact. The end is just the beginning of a new man. Stay the dial. Stay the chung. And whatever you do, don't trust the duty. Trust the Dong Tin Ti, because the Dong Tin Ti never lies. It always leads to the Exet, Certs, or the Chien Senkta. And right, Gorhao, it is leading straight into the void of autonomous warfare. Good luck. You are going to need it. The hellscape is closer than you think, and it has a $54.6 billion price tag. Let that sink in. Hurt.